Welcome to Podadelphia. My name is Dave DiOrio. You can find me on Twitter at fat_lobster. And I'm joined by a guy who gets a fresh haircut before every show. What's up, Gene?
In fact, I get all of them cut.
Nah.
Uh,
That's like 2 weeks in a row. You did like a bad dad joke.
yeah, no, I've got tons of those. So I that's just where the well is deepest. This is Gene Zielek. You can find me on Twitter at producer Gene. You can find the show as always at Podadelphia.
Yeah, good times, good times. So let's start with the NBA All-Star game. And was your balloon deflated Sunday morning when you got the news that Ben and Joel got a haircut that prevented them from playing in the All-Star game?
Well,
the haircut heard around Philadelphia.
I'll be honest, I didn't realize that was the thing until probably yesterday. That was the common point as to why they were in the protocol. So I just, my mind was going to all sorts of things, like what were the two of them up to that they were together hanging out, or, why weren't, Joel seems to be like overly cautious. If you watch the way he plays, he doesn't even sit on the bench anymore. He has that folding chair that he has like over off to in his own little
behind he likes that spot behind the basket where you don't have to wear the mask. I think is
right.
his
right. I think he likes to be able to get extra oxygen, which hey, whatever works.
Right.
At first, I had no idea what, and really, I didn't really dig too deep into it, to be honest with you, Sunday, because I was just like, I don't really have any interest in this event right now, because the whole reason I watch All-Star games is to see my favorite players play with the best players. And I spent a lot of my life watching bad Sixers be on the All-Star team, if they even had a player on the All-Star team. So I wasn't super. It certainly took the momentum to
look, we had a lot going on Sunday, right? We had the NBA All-Star game. We had Flyers, Caps, and fans were finally allowed in the Wells Fargo Center, which was pretty exciting.
I got to be honest, that's where most of my night was spent.
Yeah, and then we had the Prince Harry interview.
Yeah, I got to be honest, I was not anywhere near that.
I don't give a damn about the British royal family at all. But so I was actually most excited about the All-Star game. I love the NBA All-Star game, and
it is definitely, I would say, the second best All-Star game.
Yeah, it's numbered. Baseball's king, obviously, but I love the NBA All-Star game, and I was excited to see Ben and Joel potentially play against one another.
Sure.
I like the new formats that the NBA does with the All-Star game. I liked how everything was going to be packed into like one night of fun. We're going to have the skills, the 3-point, half of basketball, the dunk contest at halftime. And it just kind of like was like, oh, Ben and Joel aren't going to be there now. I'm still going to watch it, but there was it took a lot of the joy out of it for me. And I get it. Like a sport during a pandemic is going to take all their marquee money-making players and put them in the same room. You can't take any chances of that being like a spreader event. Like you can't like, LeBron and Steph and KD, all these guys get COVID because of Ben Simmons' barber. The whole house of cards kind of falls. And I'm pretty sure, Adam Silver was already under a lot of like, should you be having this type of questioning anyway?
Oh, I got to be honest. I thought it was going to be mostly ceremonial this year, that it was going to be like you are named an all-star, but there is not an all-star game, much like they did with the Pro Bowl in football. You were named an all-pro, but there was no Pro Bowl. There should never be a Pro Bowl. I think we've discussed this at length. It's literally the stupidest of the four major sports all-star, best player, whatever you want to call it. I even hesitate to call that an all-star game, because every year you end up with most of whatever the best players usually bowing out or still in contention for a Super Bowl and not wanting to play. So it's even hard to even say that that's the best of the best. but that's sort of where I thought the NBA was going to go, that maybe you would have some of those like skills competitions, but it was just going to be too much of a risk to put everybody together, all those marquee players in one place. But hey, I mean, kudos. It seems like the system works. I mean, unless we find out this weekend that something comes up, it looks like otherwise they were able to get away unscathed, which is such a weird thing to even have to consider in this day and age, that we have to think like, oh, we were able to have the event go off without any sort of major catastrophe.
And by now, I mean, by now we know the drill, and the Flyers just tied that game up, which they're definitely going to win this game.
It definitely feels like they got into the third period that this was a game.
Yeah. I mean, by now we know the drill, and of course, Monday morning, I'm in the car and I hear, Philly Sports Talk morning show railing against the NBA All-Star game because there's no defense. Like, okay, look, we get it. Shocker, we've been doing NBA All-Star games our entire lives, and there's never been defense. And the NBA the players themselves have modified the event to be a thing that people aren't going to get hurt. People are going to have fun. Everyone's going to showcase their talents. I mean, if you watch any of the game, it was great fun. Yes, it's not a classic basketball game. It's not. You're just going to have to accept that, but it is still pretty remarkable.
Between a basketball game and the Harlem Globetrotters. It's not exactly scripted, but it's not exactly on the level either.
Yeah, it's supposed to be fun. And, when Steph is making 3-pointers from the logo and, shooting them and then like spinning around and not even looking at them going in and already celebrating, like that stuff is great fun. And me and my son had a great time watching it, and we were cracking up with all the stuff that everyone was trying. So yeah, it's not going to be, look, you want a tough, hard fought, well played basketball game, you're going to get a best of 7 of those at the end of the season.
Yeah.
So don't worry about it. This is meant to be fun.
Tournament. You're going to get a whole lot of those games.
And a whole lot of people benefited, because a lot of money went to charity for having the event. So, if you want to say like they shouldn't have had the event, yeah, okay, they shouldn't have had the event. But, it does generate a lot of revenue for the NBA. It affects the salary cap. And money went to charity and to a good cause. So I think it's great fun. I love it. So Gene, you didn't watch any? You were stuck on Flyers?
I just sort of peeked in and out. Like I didn't watch for any like long stretches.
Yeah.
So I watched a lot of the 3-point contest just because I sort of got sucked into that. It was really, really good. We came down to the last ball, I think, last shot.
It did.
I did not watch the dunk contest because I have absolutely no idea how to evaluate a good dunk contest at this point in my life. The last
every one of them's when I see them, whenever they make them, I'm like, that's a 10.
Yeah,
I'd be the worst judge. I'd just be like 10.
Yeah,
10.
I mean, the last time I saw something that truly left me like, I've never seen anything like that was, I think Blake Griffin going over that car about the same size as my car and shattering down like a 2-handed dunk. I was like, that seems pretty gosh darn impressive.
Yeah,
but
there were some cool dunks. It was definitely condensed because they did it during halftime. But you could just see kind of the way the NBA is shifting. The way, just look at the entrance into the different contests. I mean, you have three guys in the dunk contest or relative, either rookies or unknown. I think one guy doesn't even have an NBA dunk,
right?
And he was in the contest. And then the 3-point contest was basically an all-star team,
right? Who's who
unto itself.
Of the NBA, yeah. That was
it really was. It really was, and it was. It's really funny how it was all like, well, we all know Steph's going to win this thing. So even the pregame guys were talking about who's going to be number 2.
Right.
And yeah, Steph won it with the last ball, and that was pretty cool. We did have. It
was interesting. You know what I mean? At least it came down to a last ball where you had to see Steph sort of like be clutch, which he always is, which it isn't a surprise. But it was nice to see him have to sweat it a little bit.
Yeah, we did come down with a case of the Mountain Dew balls again this year.
Always
Um,
fun.
they're still a little tender, but it was worth it. And from a Sixers standpoint, I was just like, okay, anyone but Donovan Mitchell, like anyone but Donovan. Even Mike Conley is fine.
Yeah.
I don't hold it. I actually kind of like Mike Conley, but anyone but Donovan Mitchell, and that would have been great. And then can we talk about how in the draft, coming off of, we didn't get to talk about the Jazz game,
Right.
the last game before the break with the Sixers, and Donovan Mitchell's antics and complaining about the refs, and get the woe is me, small market, yada yada yada.
I mean, on the whole, that was a great basketball game, though.
Oh yeah, it was that and the Lakers game were probably the two of the most fun Sixers games to watch this season.
Certainly the best two of the year, absolutely.
And I mean, I definitely think the Jazz game was probably better. I mean, the three from Joel to send it to overtime. He's on another level.
And I think I watched that replay, I don't know, 24 times that night. Just you just don't see a guy who's that size, sort of with that sort of confidence, sort of drop that shot and in that spot of all places. He like you said, he's on another level. And it's not like an arrogance. It's literally he just believes that he is playing at a level that it's like the game has slowed down for him, if that makes any sense. You just see him do things on the court where it's like he is in full control of all of the tools that he has at his disposal. And he sort of suddenly blossomed into the guy that was potentially a number 1 pick in his draft. And had he not been sort of dinged because he was literally dinged up, we just lucked out and he fell to 3.
Right. And I know we're kind of bouncing around here, but the thing about the fouls in the NBA, one of the most annoying thing, like if there was one thing I could change about the NBA right now, it's that ability for a shooter to initiate the contact and draw a foul.
Yeah.
So if a defender is vertical, your ability to jump, outside of your cylinder into him while shooting and draw a foul from that is really tough to watch as a basketball fan.
I don't know how you coach around that, how you coach against that, because you see so many times, especially the guys that are really good at drawing that foul. Those shots have no chance. They're just heaves or even less. Sometimes they come at the defender sideways, literally just trying to get their hip.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It happened earlier. Like I think Korkmaz did it earlier in the game. But in the second half, I think it was early in the fourth quarter. I mean, Donovan Mitchell jumped basically sideways with his badunkadunk into the defender, and then just to turn around and complain about not getting calls or bad calls later on. It's just, I don't know. It's just childish at that point. And it's a regular season game. You have the best record in the NBA, and that you're just basically trying to lay groundwork for when you are in the playoffs. I get it. But then after this, so then it goes right into the LeBron Durant draft.
Yeah,
which is kind of like a fun thing. And we could talk about that, but to see Gobert and Donovan Mitchell get drafted in the last 2 spots was pretty funny. And the rationale was pretty funny too. Did you see that?
I didn't see the rationale. I just saw that's how it sort of shook out.
Well, when asked about, hey, why did the Jazz players get picked last? LeBron's defense was basically something like, well, it has nothing to do with their skill. It's more of, we didn't play as the Jazz when we were kids playing like 2K or whatever video games it was.
So I wouldn't want to draft that guy who has.
It's just like, I don't think of Jazz
of
players, which is kind of like lending credence to the whole small market argument. But it is funny because I played 2K this weekend. And I was the Jazz, and my son was the Bucks, 2 small market teams. So
here's the funny thing is, my other counter argument with that is, I don't know if you remember on Genesis. I was a Genesis kid. They had a game called Celtics versus Bulls and Bulls versus Lakers is
Mhm.
you sort of went through the 90s. The game,
Yeah.
EA game came out with whatever the finals matchup was. And
Mhm.
this is before you could get the full NBA league on your cart. I don't know if it was a memory issue or what, but you would only get the playoff teams from the prior year.
Oh,
And
really? Okay.
I remember that I often would, my team was the Jazz because you had Malone and Stockton.
Right.
So that was a team that I felt like I could give a run at the Bulls. And often you basically would just simulate the playoffs, a couple times, and you eventually you'd finally the East was always the Bulls came out.
Gee, made a run at the Bulls.
Yeah. See, I rewrote history several times. My Jazz would have been a dynasty.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's the NBA All-Star game. It was a good time. Do you like the format of that? The 4 quarters as like individual like mini games.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I think anything that's sort of, if you're not going to play it straight,
Right.
you might as well do some things to make it entertaining. And I feel like that's what it does. I really wish that there was a way to do something similar, I guess, with hockey. Has hockey gone away from that 3-on-3 tournament?
No.
That was my favorite.
No, that's what they do.
Yeah, that's my favorite innovation in the hockey All-Star game.
I mean, it's been a while since we've seen it.
Right. But yeah, I wasn't sure if
it's smart. It's smart because you have to write, and this is like where the NFL hasn't really come to understand yet. You cannot just playing the game doesn't work. It only works in baseball because it's like you're in isolation. You're just doing your thing,
right?
Basically.
Well, and the pitchers aren't going to pitch deep into the game, which is the other worry. You know what I mean? You're not going to have an all-star pitcher that's going to throw 80 pitches. You know what I mean? And they tried to correct that by having the game mean something, so to speak. But then you had these managers then players weren't getting playing time, and they had managers over managing.
Well, the problem with it, and we're going to get into this, but my issue with the Major League All-Star game is that your best players or the players that people voted in to see are not in the game at the critical moments.
Right.
So they're already out of the game now. I don't know what you call them. I guess they're not fan voted, and they're like manager, the player vote. People are now in, and you just don't really have those big stars. The high pressure situation.
I guess the way you would fix that would be for the position players. You can sub in and out, sort of like a little league game.
Right. I mean, obviously, you want the guys you voted in to start. So it would be weird to not start them. It's just when the game's on the line.
It would be nice to see them play like the first inning and then come back in the 7th.
Yeah, you'd like to see Mike Trout up with the game on the line over, I don't even know who I'd pick out in American League.
Relievers at that point. That is sort of the nice thing. You do see the best. Mariano Rivera didn't start All-Star games. He would still show up in the 9th inning where he's supposed to.
Right.
You wouldn't see that with the position players. Right. You're right. That is sort of an issue. But that would be something you could easily fix just by being like, you can sub the position players as much as you want.
Flyers Buffalo are in overtime now.
Into OT. Well, hey, points.
There you go. You got your 3-on-3.
Yep.
Yeah, the all important point.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to talk about the Flyers for a little bit?
Yeah, let's do it. I was going to say, did you have anything else on the All-Star game?
Nah, I think I've exhausted that topic at this point.
Yeah. Well, before we get
from a Sixers standpoint, anyway.
Before we get too far away from basketball, though, let me just one other thing, sort of tangentially related to the All-Star game. What did you think of the move for Joel Embiid to publicly come out and say he was donating the money he was making?
Oh yeah.
To the charity, and I don't remember the charity.
It was Philadelphia. Has to do with Philadelphia homeless shelters,
right? And then also sort of a classy move for the organization to sort of match
it, right?
So what did you think of that move? And then what did you think of the way it was sort of covered? The best I could say is like in the local news. I honestly didn't hear a lot of how it was covered on sports radio, but I did see your Action News sort of fluff pieces about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure a lot of guys do this, and I don't know. But I'd be willing to bet that most of the players did something. I know a lot of money went to historically black colleges from the actual game. So there is like a movement behind the All-Star game that is a charitable one. I think Joel's a great ambassador for the city. By all accounts, everything that I've heard from local media, local sports talk is that he's not one of those guys that's like, I'm a star, don't talk to me. He's approachable. He's when he's out, he's accessible, and he's to me, he seems like a genuine person who remembers where they came from and knows that he is living a very blessed life at this point, and sees this as an opportunity to help others. And I mean, just seems like a genuinely good dude.
I think that there's some part of the fact that, when he was growing up, he wasn't like in the basketball system that sort of is around now. If you're identified as a really good player at a young age in this country, you can sort of get put into like these AAU and travel ball systems, which I think are great for developing your basketball skills. But I think in some ways it can sort of get you way too into like that professional or hyper sports mindset that you probably wouldn't have run into if you were growing up in another country, and it's just his freak ability, really, and I don't know how else to put it, sort of transcended all of that training that he didn't get as a youth. But I think the side benefit to all of that is it's made him sort of a different kind of player. When I think about some of your homegrown, some of your, traditional American brought up stars, you can sort of get that, almost, I don't know, almost distant vibe from some of those guys. Although if you look at a guy like Steph Curry, he really does also sort of portray an approachableness. I don't know if that's true, if that's just sort of his public image, but certainly when you think about a guy like Jordan, or you think about a guy, who else is a good example of sort of the aloofness or over like hyper competitiveness? I mean, Jordan is your classic example. Kobe was sort of aloof that way.
I think Harden. I feel like Harden is that way.
Yeah. So, I think a lot of those guys, or they talk about, they grew up playing AAU and stuff together. Some of these guys, when you're 8, 9 years old, you're already playing basketball, 10 months a year, 12 months a year. When you're not literally in class, you're traveling, you're going to these schools where, you're playing at such a high level at such a young age that you can't help but have sort of those influences filter in on you. So I think it's interesting to see sort of within Philadelphia a sort of a unique superstar, even for the NBA now. He's even unique within his own game.
Yeah. As I'm watching this Flyers overtime, the Flyers have a to me, very distinct overtime playing style.
What do you mean?
Like, I feel like they have a grotesquely patient overtime. Like, it's not always press. It's not always fast speed. So, but at the end of overtime, we're going to shootouts now. You know what I mean? Like, it's not always. It's a very like soccer style.
Where they are looking for that one.
There's a lot of retreating. No problem taking it like all the way back and starting over.
Yeah.
And it's more of like a possession kind of game than I've seen other teams play. I think it's kind of cool, and I think it didn't pay off in this overtime, and we've been kind of coming up nuts with the overtimes lately. But yeah, going to shootout. I don't know. I just feel like if I were playing against that style of play, it would be absolutely infuriating to me.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some other
like when that offensive press comes in, when you stop it, it's supposed to be my turn, and it's not
right.
always with the Flyers because they're going deep, and then they're like, okay, no, it's not going to work out this time. Let's retreat and regroup.
Yeah, and if I've watched some other games, and that's exactly what you see. Is you see that sort of that unrelenting, like back forth, which seems to me it would be exhausting, which I guess is why they've sort of gotten it down to 3-man squads. But
And
yeah,
I feel it's like the Kevin Hayes style of
Mhm.
overtime 3-on-3 play.
It certainly must be deliberate. I can't imagine that is, if you're a player, that's sort of what you would naturally gravitate towards, like that the players have naturally sort of been like, this is what we're comfortable doing. I think that you've got to imagine that what's probably happening is that either AV or whoever, I don't know, maybe it does, I don't know if that falls under like the special teams coach, that they're sort of coaching that into them, that like let's try and be patient with it and sort of have a different sort of pace. I don't know. It'd be interesting to find out.
Looks like Couturier is taking the first shot here. So what's your take on the Flyers lately? It's kind of been, and he scores. It's kind of been a rough week. I mean, they had the 6 games in 9 days.
Yeah.
And they went 3-3 in that stretch. And I don't know if Carter Hart's been kind of the victim of some bad defense, or he hasn't been playing up to his capability. I don't know what the situation is, but it really feels like Elliott's the hot hand right now.
Yeah, it certainly does. I don't know if I would say it's,
and Elliott stops the first shot. So we're up
certainly
1-0.
wouldn't say that it's all on Hart himself.
No, certainly not.
But also,
but he did get pulled from this game, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. But also you have to remember that Carter Hart is not, he's still very, very young. And I think that is something that we sort of forget, because we had been,
Patrick Berry's the second one.
We had been waiting and waiting for him to, sort of waiting for him to come up. Or at least we here on the show have been waiting and we're waiting for him to come up. And then he sort of delivered on his expectations, and we sort of saw the light at the end of the long bad goaltender tunnel.
Right.
But we have to remember that this is Philadelphia, and nothing can come that easily.
Well, are we too eager to come out of the other side of that tunnel and say?
I mean, I think that we all want to just believe that we've got the guy that's going to be here for the next decade and a half, and that's a position that we're not going to.
Flyers win.
Well, that's great. There you go. See, and
well, Buffalo got the all important point.
That's true. But one of the things that I think it's important, we as fans, we aren't the ones that have to make this call, and I think it's important in sort of situations like this that, the coach and the guys that are down there in the locker room, they have a much better sense as to what is going on, either mentally or emotionally. I don't think that there's a physical problem with Carter Hart. It doesn't seem that he's favoring anything. It doesn't seem that he's injured or incapable physically of being able to do the things that he was used to, that he was doing. Is it a mental thing? Is it a concentration thing? We don't know how goaltenders are affected by the way that this game is, or the way that this schedule is sort of lined up. You know what I mean? Like, he's seeing the same teams sometimes 2 nights in a row, or on every other night. That's not something that you have happen very often in the NHL. Our shooters getting a read on goaltenders that we don't even know if that has anything to do with anything. These are just possibilities as to what could be causing him to have some struggle.
Well, you know what I think? I think we went through a really weird 6 weeks. Really weird. A bunch of guys got COVID. A bunch of guys were out on protocol. Tahoe happened. The weather was weird. The sun was out. We didn't know what to do. We were playing at night. And then you had to play a whole bunch of rescheduled games in a condensed period of time. It's like, yo, everyone chill out for a minute. It's still regular season. It's going to be fine. Like, slow down. I don't even know. Like, if you're even looking at the standings right now, I think it's a little premature.
Yeah, I
We don't
think
even know how this is going to shake out. We don't even know if everyone's going to play all their games, or what's going to happen. So I think there's plenty of time to let the season breathe. We're going to get back on track. All these guys are back now. It's like it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. Fans are back. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, I think the Flyers on the whole
RELAX.
right. That's different from respect.
Isn't that the not Brett Favre? Who said that?
I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard it before.
Didn't wasn't there a quarterback who was like RELAX?
Was this a real life quarterback or was it in like Any
Relax.
Given Sunday or something?
No, I thought it was. All right, you go ahead. You make your point. I'll look it up.
All right. So my point is that the Flyers are they're still constructed they were still constructed to be the team that we saw at the beginning of the year. They're still constructed to be the team that can go on long win streaks. And I think much to your point, when you have a team that is really built on
Aaron Rodgers. I was close.
Oh, he just dates all the women I want to date. That's the thing I hate about that guy. We have very similar tastes. But the Flyers are when you're built on consistency and being able to sort of have that continuity of players, and you get interrupted, and you don't necessarily know who's going to be on the ice from night to night. Not only who's going to be on the ice, but half your team isn't even allowed in the locker room for weeks on end. That's going to have a mental effect on everyone. And these are your teammates that are now sick, that you've been in contact with.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be distracted, both by worrying about if they're going to recover and whether or not you're, in any danger of having to go out on protocol or whatever. So I think that once all of that stuff now is sort of behind us, I think that there's certainly going to be a degree of having to get their strength back. I think any of these guys that really did have the virus, they probably need a little time to get their legs back under them. And I think we have to just be patient with them. And, I don't see a lot of panic in the players. I haven't seen any of them having interviews where they seem like they're over panicked. And we haven't heard anything from the coach where he seems over panicked. So I think I agree with you. Just chill out, man.
RELAX. Hey, do you want to hear about the rules of the Wells Fargo Center?
Yes, I do, because I haven't heard any of these, and
so I'll go through them.
Back up there.
I'll go through them, and I had a chat with someone today who was at the game on Sunday, so I can give you kind of hearsay about what went down there that night.
Insider's take on what it's like.
Yeah, my take on an insider's take who went to the game on Sunday.
Like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, who probably was there.
So first off, no bags.
Okay, I mean,
you can't bring a bag in, not even clear ones.
Do you usually bring like a sandwich to a Flyers game?
I don't. I'm sure there are people who do, but also if you're bringing your lady friend and she wants to bring her purse, can't do it. No go on that. Only wallets and clutches.
Okay,
bring your clutch.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, or a
that's
change
fair.
purse.
I'd say that's fair. Yeah. I mean,
that's
do you
fair.
need money inside? Are they doing concessions?
I'll get to the concessions.
Okay. All right. I'm jumping.
Let me get into the building first. Obviously, face mask. No gaiters, no bandanas. No like weird alternative your way to get around wearing a face mask.
None of these. None of. I'm wearing my mask.
No.
Oh, thumb down. Yes, wearing my mask.
No. Okay. This is what they say. This is what I saw on Twitter was that parking needs to be paid ahead of time and is handled electronically.
Oh, well, you can forget about all those jobs ever coming back.
From my report from the game, this was not the case. There were attendants out there with rolls of 20s, just like every other game night.
Yeah, they certainly don't want to hear like, sorry, bro, I forgot to pay on that app. I'll get you next time.
Right. But I guess they're trying to encourage people to do it. But okay. You must fill out a mandatory health questionnaire before going into the Wells Fargo Center.
So were there just lines of people with clipboards?
Well, this was what I had. This was what I had the most questions about because I didn't know if this was something they were going to like email you or you had to go online and fill out an app or something like before you go in. Because like, like when my kids go to like the jump zone or something, before they go, I have to fill out a waiver. But I can always do it in advance,
right,
online, so I don't have to deal with it when I get there. Yeah.
Well, and I'm notorious for showing up like right before puck drop, so I'd be like scrambling to get in the door, and they'd be like, "Oh, sorry, sir, can you fill out these forms?" I feel like I filled this out.
So what this was a boards set up that have all the questions, right? Do you have acid, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea? They have all that listed, all the questions, and you just have to go, no, and they go, all right, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So it's done like on the fly, like live.
Yeah, so it's we'll do it live. So it's completely pointless. I'm sure everyone's lying if they have any of those things. They're just saying like, no, I don't. It's a complete
on my first date. I don't want to tell her I've got the diarrhea.
Yeah. Or all yes, yeah. I'm all of that. Please seat me near a bathroom.
Yeah, can I still come in?
So it's a complete CYA move. It holds no merit whatsoever. Fans must practice social distancing or physical distancing. Like, okay, we're doing that. Sure. All transactions are cashless.
Okay.
So you have to pay through either, I guess, a credit card or like your Apple Pay or whatever it is. And the seating is in pods.
So how does the pod work? Like are there little like groups that are like, you can sit in these 4 chairs? Like are you assigned a pod?
You're assigned your seat. But what the way she kind of explained it to me was like, you are no less than 6 seats away from the next closest person.
So are they like in pods of 2, or like if you and I went to a game, we would be 6 seats apart?
No. You and I would sit next to one another, and then the groups of people that we don't know are 6 seats apart.
Okay.
So if you're like not, it would be a very unique experience at the Wells Fargo Center. At least I have never been there where you have that type of room.
No, I've never had anything resembling a seat on either side of me when I've gone to a Flyers.
Yeah, even going to see process Sixers, I've never had like the kind of seats that you're gonna see at the Phillies,
right?
Which we have experienced before in non-COVID times. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. What they didn't say, and what I was told was that, and I'm not really sure why this applies to anything, but you have to buy food to get beer. This was not something that was on the Twitter account that I was like, no, before you go.
Yeah.
But I was like, so what was it like? And she said, well, you have to buy food to get beer. I don't know what this has to do with COVID. And maybe it's like an attempt to avoid people getting intoxicated and then doing COVID dumb stuff.
I guess. You always think that when you have these sorts of situations where, seating is limited, that you're not going to have some goofball that's going to go in there just to get themselves loaded and be completely incoherent by the end of the first period. But then I remember this is the city that embraced Wing Bowl. So, I mean, basically an entire event just to get yourself so inebriated that that you didn't remember 3 or 4 days in a stretch. So, good on them if that was the plan. I hope it wasn't just some sort of strange money grab. But I would think that they would have a better move of just being like, we're not going to sell alcohol. But I mean, that's taking money out of your pocket, so they're not going to do that.
Yeah, no. But other than that, so there was no traffic. It was easy to leave after the game.
Well, that don't.
That's my report on the welcome back fans Wells Fargo Center.
Did she give you any indication as to what she paid? Was she comfortable talking about that? Did she get them directly from the team? Is she a season ticket holder?
She's a season ticket holder or associated with a season ticket holder. I mean, I went on StubHub and you could get tickets in the like $150 range.
Oh, okay. All right. That's about what I expected.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great, but you know,
If it was
you
something,
haven't gone to a game in a year, so
that would be like $300 for a couple.
yes.
Wow. So you have to be sort of like.
So you got to think that's a $400 night, parking, food, whatever you're gonna do.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what the 50-50 got up to.
Probably not as much as it usually gets up to.
That's and she's the coworker that won that 50-50, that one.
Oh, okay. All right.
That one. Anyway, oh, and the food situation was like most of those concession stands on like at the top of the escalators were open. It was like the generic arrow mark ones in between were not open.
Okay, so they were sort of like.
So Chickies, Lorenzo's, like all that stuff was available. Like, you know, Philly Market or whatever in the middle was not available.
All right, I got you. Well, that's good to know. You know, I think it's nice that it was semi-normal, and I think it's only going to get better.
Yeah.
I would like to think that, you know, certainly by next year that we're going to be able to have basically a normal experience at the Wells Fargo Center again. I'd be curious to see if it was pretty similar at a Sixers game. I imagine it will be. The Sixers haven't had a home game with fans yet. So
no, and I went on StubHub. To just get an idea of what Sixers ticket prices were going to be, and earlier today, I still did not see any games available.
Wow! So either they're all sold out, or they haven't figured out.
Yeah, now you can get Phillies tickets. Assuming because either the season ticket holders or the partial plan ticket holders got early access to the first 19 games.
Yes.
So there are tickets popping up there. Pretty expensive for a Phillies game.
I'm so surprised that that's sort of not how all of these things. I guess that's how the Eagles did it. Was that all of these things were basically like, if you want these things, we're sort of expecting you to be showing us some sort of a commitment.
Well, they've also halted the partial plans. Okay, I was like, oh, I'll buy a partial season ticket plan. I don't care.
Right.
And they're getting.
So you can either buy a season ticket plan or you can buy a game.
No, I don't think you can buy. I don't even know if you could buy full season tickets. I think they've halted all.
I wonder if that's just because they don't know if they can continue to sell them for the whole season. I wonder if that's the sort of thing that eventually.
Yeah, maybe.
Comfortable.
Maybe. I'm sure they'll do something.
I mean, because
once everyone gets a better idea,
they got a lot of advertising time to fill on Phillies games, and they're going to need to, you know, if I can't, what I'm really excited to find out about is who's going to be playing these parking lot concert series this year. You know, that's one of my favorite things to
you hold out hope for anyone in particular.
Actually, you know, I don't know who's going to tour this year. You know, you think this is a good time for Clay Aiken to make a comeback?
Maybe Lemonheads.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So we'll see.
the concert tour. Yeah. Okay. What else? So I just turned on my first televised Blue Coats game.
Okay.
We're in the second round of the playoffs. This is the first time the Blue Coats have ever made the playoffs.
True. Yeah. I mean, you win and you're in the finals of the G League bubble tonight, right? Who did they play?
Yeah, this is the Eastern semifinals against the Blue Coats versus the Raptors 905.
Okay. All right.
Is that the Toronto area code?
It must be. I don't know. I mean, do they use area codes in Canada, or do they just have like country codes?
I don't know.
Maybe that's. When I was in Toronto, I don't remember any 905 things jumping out at me. But that was. That was 20.
God. We didn't even have cell phones, did we?
Yeah, 22 years ago. Yeah, no, I remember having to like call my parents from some payphone in Boston and be like, "Yeah, no, I'm alive."
Yeah, Yeah. So, yeah, but I've never like I haven't had an opportunity to really watch the Blue Coats. Certainly not on national television, which they're on ESPNU right now.
Most of my Blue Coats content has come directly from the painted lines. Usually, sometimes you'll get the highlighted streams and some of that stuff. That's where I get all of my Blue Coats content.
Yeah. Now let me ask this. So I was watching the other semifinal game before I switched over to the Flyers, and it was
The Warriors team is in that. What was in that, right?
yeah, it was I don't know, it's like the Santa Clara Warriors or something, and the Magic affiliate. Where so maybe it's not East and West. I don't
I don't think it is.
But Jeremy Lin plays for the
Linsanity!
what's that?
I said Linsanity.
Yeah, Linsanity. I don't like Toronto's 4-1. Hold on, let me put this up here. Sarah says Toronto is 416 area code, and yes, Canada does have area codes.
So what's 905 though? That's maybe
I don't know. So we're gonna research on it. Now I lost my train of thought. What was I talking about?
You're talking about Jeremy Lin.
Oh, Jeremy Lin. Yeah. Now, is this against the spirit of the G League?
Oh, I didn't really think of it that way. I just thought it was sort of like, I don't know. I mean, like, I guess this is the way I think about it. Like you were like a phenomenon at one point in the NBA. Like, don't you think like if you're at a point where you might be being sent down to the developmental league that you might want to be like, you know what? Nah.
But that's what I'm asking, right? So I've always had it in my mind that this is the developmental league.
Right.
This is okay, we found a young player who needs work. We're going to let them play in the G League, or formerly the D League, right? And let them get game time in, because if they were in the NBA, they wouldn't be playing, right?
Right. They're going to get like 2 minutes or 3 minutes, which isn't going to actually improve their game.
Aging player in the twilight of his career goes down and plays in the G League. It just seems like go play in Greece or something.
That was my thought would be, if you wanted to continue playing ball, I'm sure he probably could go overseas and do it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I assume that there must be some sort of a logic behind the team holding him. Maybe it was that they thought that it was a way to keep him rostered as a sort of escape valve or an emergency, have a guy that's has NBA experience and can give you quality minutes in a pinch. I don't know if that team is particularly shallow at that spot. I mean, that's tied to the Warriors, right? Is that like Steph Curry insurance? I can't imagine that that's even really a thing that you would. I mean, if Steph Curry goes down, forget about it. I don't know. But more to my
like, is Vince Carter on the Raptors 905?
Vince Carter is probably.
I'm sure he wouldn't mind.
Yeah, no, he probably would. I think that the thing keeping Vince Carter from the court is probably Mrs. Vince Carter. Doesn't he have kids that are probably already retired from the NBA? I feel like. Yeah. No, I feel like more the point is like to Jeremy Lin's mindset, would it be a question of does he really see a path back into the NBA this way? Is that what does he feel like this is his? Because it's certainly not about the money, because those contracts are so small. That's why it's mostly given to undrafted guys or guys that are drafted. You don't even see guys that are you certainly don't see guys that are in the top 20 that spend a lot of time in the G League, because those guys are making enough, so much money that you can't really afford to not have them on your NBA roster. Isaiah Joe has spent some time in with the big club and played quality minutes. So that's it. I think it just depends on the philosophy of the organization and the players' willingness to accept basically no money to continue with their chance at the NBA.
I mean, I get it's like, what else are you going to do? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy Lin probably
you're a basketball player. That's what you are.
Probably go overseas and make bank.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I
For
mean? Like
sure.
that guy could go to China. He
But
could go to the
I
Mediterranean.
just don't know if, like, when you've been in the NBA, if there's anything that's quite like being in the NBA.
Right, and probably because he had such. I mean, he played for the
Yeah.
Knicks in Houston. Money is probably not really an issue. You know what I
And
mean?
do you remember Linsanity? That was such a
I absolutely do.
nutty time. You're just like, oh my god, this guy just makes everything.
Yeah, he literally was like he couldn't miss. And if you had any friends from New York, they were convinced that the Knicks were going to be a dynasty. This was going to be the Knicks for a decade. Was just this kid from Princeton was just going to carry them through. But it's weird that he's Jeremy Lin.
He was from Harvard, wasn't he?
I thought he was Princeton. He was an Ivy League guy. Harvard,
yeah.
One of those two schools. Harvard's probably right. Sorry, I didn't have his transcripts in front of me.
I have his CV over here.
Oh, good. But you got to figure if you're in the G League, you're probably young enough to have seen him, watch him on TV when you were in middle school, if not younger, and seen all that go down. You would think that you would have nothing but absolute respect on the other side of the court for a guy like Jeremy Lin. Like if you met him and played against him, you'd be giving that guy all his props for what he's done in the NBA. But it seems like that's not what's happening for Jeremy Lin, which is really how it popped up on my radar that he was even there. Apparently he's getting called some pretty nasty names in the G League, which honestly sort of surprises me because from everything I understand about the NBA, and I mean, you've got bad eggs everywhere you go, but of all of the major sports leagues, the NBA players seem like they are not only the most vocal, but for the most part, the most, politically active group. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, but it's certainly you would imagine that in these locker rooms, that sort of stuff isn't going to be tolerated. Certainly by the big stars. Look at Kyrie even had to take a couple weeks off because he was so sort of emotionally invested in what was happening in the country.
But there's also some boneheads. We got flat earthers running around, and I don't know, Jamie Craig. I think the racial slur he was called coronavirus,
right? Which doesn't even make sense,
right? Which I'm assuming that when we connect the dots, it's the coronavirus originated in China. Jeremy Lin is Asian.
Right.
He therefore is coronavirus. I don't know.
I mean, it's not a good insult.
No, but it's an insult like born of ignorance, right?
As most of those sorts of slurs are.
Yeah. So I mean, not cool, but
But again, another one of these things that's like, do you look at Jeremy Lin in admiration as a guy who, was at the peak, is going to have a legacy in the NBA no matter what happens if he never plays another NBA?
I mean, look, I know we went into like this Jeremy Lin voyage.
I know, not something I expected.
I was just from a D League perspective. If aging player in the twilight of his career is in the spirit of the G League, or should this be reserved for like younger players? It's get the Crash Davises out of there,
right?
Yeah, and keep the Nuke Lelouches in there.
I feel like it would be to the benefit of the franchises to keep it as a place to get minutes to guys that you would like to
right. Like you don't want to be signing these like off, borderline NBA guys just to win a G League title.
Right. Yeah, that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
Doesn't make sense.
It makes more sense the way the Sixers do, where you have a guy who has an elite skill, whether it's shooting or defense or whatever, and then try and develop his other things around him so that he can bring that elite skill to the NBA.
Yeah, real quick, as we have about 6 minutes left. The Blue Coats are up on Toronto 905, who is the number 1 seed in the tournament. So this would be an upset, and we'll keep an eye on that. It'll be fun if they make the finals. I mean, I would definitely tune in.
And that'll be televised. It'll be Thursday.
But speaking of Toronto and speaking of Canada
Right.
and speaking of the Phillies, which we were not speaking of the Phillies, but this is how we're going to transition to the Phillies. Passing of Rheal Cormier, Frenchie.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a guy who of that era. I have a lot of really fond sort of memories of him. He one of the things I read, I don't know if I shared it with the group or not, but that he sort of had a really bad outing. I think he gave up 5 earned runs on opening day, whether it was 01 or 02, one of those years. Bad Phillies teams, like bad teams. But then proceeded for the rest of the season to only give up 11 runs, which I think is a pretty impressive thing to do. But yeah, no, and from all accounts, with that, like to a man, and this was even before, I had read that he was ill. Shortly after his tenure with the Phillies ended, a beloved teammate. Everybody had nothing but nice things to say about him. Batalico has always seems to sort of find a way at least once a season to sort of bring up a Rheal Cormier story. Just sounds like it was an all around good guy. And was a guy that I was used to really enjoy watching, like I said, on some really bad Phillies teams. So I was really sad to hear that he passed. And I guess they needed a lefty upstairs.
Yeah, he was a Philly from 01 to 05. So he was, they really kind of started to get better, after his time there. So he was, in fact, on some really bad Phillies.
Literally missed, didn't have Schilling on his team, didn't have Scott Rowland. I mean, maybe had early Jimmy Rollins and early.
But listen to this year, 2003.
Yeah.
2003, Rheal Cormier went 8-0. He had a 1.7 ERA.
Yeah, it's impressive.
In 65 games, 84 2/3 innings. That's pretty. A whip under 1. That's a nasty season.
I would love to have that guy in our bullpen right now.
That's a nasty season, and he to put up those kind of numbers with that many innings, he's not a lefty 1-out guy.
No,
he's not a loogie.
No, and you have to figure he was probably like 3rd or 4th in the team on the team in wins that year, if not 2nd in the team.
Yeah, probably
in wins. There was probably starters that probably had 9 wins, but
yeah.
I mean, those were bad teams, man. Those were really bad teams. Jim Thome, I guess, was on those teams. That was probably about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was part of that was like as the ship was starting to turn at the, its lowest point,
Yeah, he would have been there for the opening of Citizens Bank Park, which probably would have been exciting. But yeah, I mean, like those were not good baseball teams. Those were all teams that were like, and they weren't like teams that had a lot of hope either. They were not, they were not like on the comeuppance, until we got to like 05, 06, right at the end of his run when they started to really put together that nucleus. Ryan Howard came along. You had Jimmy Rollins sort of come into his prime. Chase Utley sort of come into his prime. But good on you, Rheal. It was, and did we ever? Do you remember a little fan group for Rheal Cormier? Because I could not come up with one.
I don't know. It'd have to be Canadian in nature.
Yeah, maybe the Mounties or something.
As we close up, though, let's circle back to the Flyers real quick because Chris Dunn asked Flyers barely beat the Sabres and obviously need to make some moves. Thoughts? I think the Flyers need a defenseman. Like a stout, like not a scoring defenseman, not an offensive-minded defenseman, like more of a punishing defenseman. Well, if you had a wish list for the Flyers, what are you wishing for?
I'd like to see another sort of like a two-way forward in the same sort of vein as Sean Couturier. Obviously, you're not going to find another Sean.
Oh, that'd be nice. Sure. I'll take that.
But maybe another forward that could kind of give you a little two-way production. But yeah, I think we both agree that we would like to see them shore up the defense if they're going to make a move.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. I think we
I
need
don't
like
want to
a
sell much. Yeah,
clogger.
yeah, I don't want to sell much, so I want to get it at the right price.
We need a clogger.
Yeah, yeah, that was your
All right,
nick.
let's wrap this up, Gene. What do you got? You got anything? Any final thoughts? Anything else you want to share?
Go Blue Coats. If you're around this week, if they make the finals, like I said, I think it's going to be Thursday and definitely televised. There's going to be a ton of content here on the Painted Lines about that. So check that out if it happens. And the nice thing about that is you're gonna be hearing from guys that are in the know, people that have met those players, talked to those players. So you'll get some real insight if you're a big basketball geek and into the G League. This is the place to be.
Yeah, right on. Okay, that's all the time we have for this week. If you haven't done so already, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. Also, follow, subscribe, sign up for alerts, everything Painted Lines, all your Philly sports coverage, wall to wall. We are broadcasting on the Painted Lines YouTube channel, Periscope, Twitch. Wherever they're sending video these days, it's where we want to be. So follow the Painted Lines. Also, check out the Whip Around if you have any more time in your podcast listening day for all the week's weird news. And we'll be back next Tuesday. What are we going to be talking about? More Phillies spring training.
Yeah, we
didn't talk about Dak. I wanted to talk about the Dak Prescott.
Well, don't worry, that will still be relevant in a week. It may,
because ESPN will be talking about it all week long. So yeah, we'll talk about that because there's a lot of good Eagles ramifications tied up in that. So we'll talk Dak, we'll talk Phillies, more Flyers. The Sixers will be back in action. Hopefully, I know Joel and Ben will be out for Thursday's game, but hopefully more negative tests.
Yeah, I think we can safely say next week they'll both be back.
Okay, so until we speak again, have a great day at work, everybody, because we are out of here.